Welcome to Fragments of Silicon, guaranteed not located near any unsafe stores of ammonium nitrate.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me, as always, the regular crew. Let's get to the news. Galax, why don't you start us off this week?
Well, thankfully we got near missed by that. I mean, it wasn't like anything severe by the time it got to Maine, but apparently a lot of people got power knocked out and stuff, and we barely got rain in the area where I live specifically. So that was nice. I have a dentist appointment tomorrow that I'm not super looking forward to, but it sounds like they're not doing anything too ridiculous in terms of safety features. Like they've upped their security and safety and stuff for disease stuff, but not to a level that would make me feel like it's not like I'm going to be like wrapped in plastic or anything while they're doing it.
They're not going to chain you to a wall and test you for everything.
Right.
So what kind of work are you getting?
Oh, this is just my regularly cleaning. I still have some other work that I'm planning on getting done, but I still haven't felt safe approaching a regular doctor, what with pandemic stuff going on. So they want me to do that first, so.
Bun on a bun?
Had a good time playing Breath of the Wild with Dad again this past Sunday, although he did end up accidentally running off the Great Plateau because he still doesn't have the hang of moving the camera while he's moving. That's about all I have that I think is interesting, but
Well, then we'll shift over to Twilight.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks to some week or weekend drink, and I've changed cold down significantly, much better than it was last week. I've been looking to get to phone.
Like, can you guys understand Twilight?
Not really.
I got about half of that, I think.
Yeah, you are roboting out severely here. So, Petty, over to you while Twilight fixes his settings.
My week has been overall uneventful. I ended up getting a couple games on the PlayStation sale, Tetris Effect and Need for Speed Heat. So that's been interesting.
Now, is Tetris Effect going to be upgraded to that multiplayer thing, or is it DLC or what?
No idea.
We're not even sure if that's coming to the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So it's just regular Tetris Effect for now.
Yes.
Okay.
And I had to order new ear cushions for my headset because they decided they wanted to split open on Sunday after we were doing the reviews. So got that squared away because Amazon's great. And I also heard from my attorney about my SSI case. Because of the pandemic, they're mostly caught up on decisions, so it's very likely I can hear something by the end of the year or very early next year. So that's fun.
Because of the pandemic, what? They're not getting as many new cases so they can work on their backlog?
Yep. And they're
Right.
they're surprisingly caught up. Before on the pandemic, they were like almost a year back because with all the new cases and stuff they were getting. But since the offices basically shut down, they were able to pump through a lot of them.
Mm.
Well, that
And-
would be good.
Yeah. Just in time for that Medicaid expansion.
And as far as the hearing itself, it's still on for the 25th. So that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Not looking forward to that, but things gotta happen.
Indeed.
And
Like-
yeah, I think that's all from the camp of me.
All right. Twilight, how are things over with you? Have you fixed your mic? Huh.
The silence is a no.
That's what I'm taking it as. Well, given that, I'll move on to my news. Let's see. Had my birthday this past Saturday. I have turned XT amount of years, let's say. Like, and it was at one point supposed to be a significant birthday, but the pandemic has kind of killed off that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So instead I had a takeout barbecue.
Man.
Yes, the pulled pork was fairly nice. The beef brisket was a bit too fatty for my tastes.
Mm.
Oh well. And let's see. Already got my gifts for the birthday. Got that last month. Like I said, it was fairly uneventful, but that's kind of the story of people doing things responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Looks over at the
Speaking
beach
with-
at all the crazy people.
yeah. And let me see. So it's also a month of moves. Don't think we've mentioned it on the show proper here, but our let's say post-show correspondent Kevin, he is moving this month. He's moving to somewhere in the Atlanta area. Like, he's moving about the same time as my brother, who is moving about. He's going to be about 2 hours away. Like, and I really hope I have impressed upon him that this Florida is an epicenter. Like, be careful with your kids. They're going to be homeschooled, and ordinarily I would have issues with that, but given that they're trying to reopen the schools here,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's fine. Like, so hopefully things go smoothly on that. And yeah, that's about all my news. Not sure if Twilight. Okay, apparently his internet.
Can you hear
seems-
me?
There you
he
are.
is.
Yeah, my voice connection is bouncing back and forth, so I know how much of what I'm saying is legible right now.
All right. So why don't you retake your news so we can make sure that your connection's fine?
All right. Well, the weather's cooled down thanks to some rain.
We got about as far as rain, and then you dropped again.
All right. I'm going to assume that his connection is going to be wonky this whole time. So let's just move on to the interview portion. And joining us this week is coming back to the program, Laurent Mercure of Chainawesome Games.
Hey guys,
Hey, how are you doing tonight?
pretty good, pretty good. What about you guys?
We seem to be holding firm.
Great.
At least three of us are.
Yeah.
Uh, Technology. Anyway, so I suppose we should get started by talking about Night Squad, specifically the first one.
Yeah.
I don't think we talked about Night Squad the first time you were on the program. It was
Probably mentioned it, but not a lot.
right. It was more about Aftercharge.
Exactly.
I guess we should actually start with a question about Aftercharge. How's that been doing since it got released?
Well, it's very difficult. Right now, I must say we're more than a year after the launch, and the game isn't what we hoped it would be. Launching a game in this market, the online only competitive multiplayer game, is is extremely demanding, and I think we figured out that it was too big of a challenge for the size of studio and the kind of marketing power that we had. So we managed to keep the game afloat for a few months. During a few months, it was possible to just log in, jump into a quick play, and find a match. However, it got harder and harder as the month continues. People moved away and they found another game to play because we were in competition with so many other games, most of them free to play. It was very hard to fight against that. So now the game is still available and still playable, but players are usually going through private matches instead than just queuing up in quick play. So to us, as a very small studio, it still stands as a technological achievement, and we're really proud of what we managed to do with that game. But commercially, it didn't do so well.
That's always unfortunate to hear. You know?
Yeah, but we feel like we're not alone in this. We hear stories these days of much larger studios uh, running into the same wall as we did, and
Yeah,
we're
getting market share is not an easy thing to do.
yeah. If we just take the example of Rocket Arena, launched like three weeks ago,
Yeah,
that's barely having enough players to keep working, and it's EA, it's Electronic Arts. So if they can't manage to do it, what chances did we have?
depends
So
on. I suppose that all depends on
yeah, a
circumstances.
lot.
It's like, uh,
And virality. There's a lot of factors. Some things worked for us. We were available through Game Pass on Xbox on day one. That definitely helped
mhm.
a lot keep the player base flowing. But things got played against us. For example, a few weeks after we launched, Apex Legends launched. So that's another shooter. And it when if you remember back in that at that month, now barely anyone talks about Apex Legends. When it dropped on February 2019, people were like saying, "Oh, this is going to kill Fortnite," and like big streamers were all flocking to that game. So even though we had a very small share of that player pool, I think we felt the effect on our player base.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Apex Legend is still doing fine for itself. Yeah,
Mm.
it's not the Fortnite killer it was hyped up to be, but like they're still doing regular updates, regular seasons to
Yeah,
Apex Legends.
it's
Uh,
probably bringing up enough revenue to just stay afloat. That's for sure.
hmm I mean, like if EA is still supporting it, unlike say Titanfall, it
Rest
must
in
be
peace,
doing.
Titanfall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. It must be doing something because EA isn't one to keep things around. Uh,
No, it's a big company and they have shareholders, and so
yeah,
there at some point money talks. So if a game just isn't giving money back, you have to stop. That's pretty much what we did with Aftercharge as well. We're a very small studio, and the survival of the studio was at stake. So when we decided to move to another project, it's because it was very dangerous for us to keep working and investing in Aftercharge.
I'm like, another thing that's really fortunate is that you were in the position that you could move on from a disappointment in the market to another project.
Yeah, of course, we were lucky to do that. A lot of indie studios don't have that chance.
Nope.
But luckily, it was our third game, so not our first time, not our first rodeo. So our third game, and we had some money in the back, and we also secured funding for that next project. So yeah, we're fortunate enough.
So I suppose the question to tie into what we're talking about tonight is: did well, for lack of a better term, the failure of Aftercharge play anything into the creation of Night Squad 2 here?
Yeah, we could say that. It was always an idea that we had in the back of our minds when we launched Night Squad successfully in end of 2015. It was received well. People had fun with the game, and they shared their love for the game. And even when we found that very odd, but a few months after we actually launched Night Squad, a lot of people were like saying, oh, what about Night Squad 2? Like, man, that's not how it works. We just launched Night Squad. But we felt that this was kind of a signal that there was potential for it. We couldn't jump on Night Squad 2 though, because we had at that moment secured funding with the Canada Media Fund to make Aftercharge. So that was pretty much on our. We kind of had to do that. We had an engagement with them, and it's a nice sum of money. So we said let's do that project, and then after that we'll see if Night Squad 2 makes sense. And especially in the context of Aftercharge didn't performing commercially as good because it was very was daring to go in that market for a studio of our size with the marketing budget that we had, which wasn't enormous. It was, I'd say, a dangerous project. I'm looking for the right term. Only French words come up to my mind. But audacious. I don't know if that's a word. But we went for something that was risky. That would be it was really risky. So of course it made sense that once you've tried something risky and you're in the studio is in a rough spot, you go for something safer. So it instantly Night Squad 2 came back to our minds, and we weren't sure at first that we couldn't put enough new stuff in Night Squad to make a Night Squad 2. But we polled the community. We talked with a long time Night Squad fans that were still active. We still had a lot of, and we still have today, a lot of Night Squad players that play on a regular basis. And we kind of, without telling them we were making a sequel, we kind of told them what they would like for us to add in Night Squad if we were to add something. And then all of those things, we figured on our end, we figured that there was enough game modes. There were enough nights. It wouldn't add value, but we found out that that's exactly what people were looking for. So we jumped into that project um, with all the experience we learned making Aftercharge and the experience we've learned from the feedback of the first Night Squad. We felt like we had enough stuff to actually make a sequel.
Okay, that's good to know. And I suppose, can you go into any of like the specifics of what the community has asked for in Night Squad 2
Yeah,
and you implemented?
yeah, absolutely. Well, the first one, it was really recurring, and it was it made sense was to have more game modes. So even though there was already plenty of game modes in the original Night Squad, um, this is how Night Squad players play Night Squad. They want to have always something new to try. So what the players came back to us what make more game modes, but what we decided on top of new game modes is to add customization options in the gameplay so that all of the game modes would be even more replayable. So we added things that were kind of basics that didn't exist in the original Night Squad. So controls over the power ups. So there's a lot of power ups in Night Squad that are spawning randomly on the field, and they make a huge change in the matches. They're very powerful. So now we give in Night Squad 2, we give players control over the power ups, the rate at which they spawn, which power up spawns and which do not, and we also allow players to decide which power ups they want to start with. So if they want a faster gameplay, they can have every night starts with speed boots, a level 2 speed boots. So everyone goes really, really fast. So that changes the gameplay quite a bit. And we also added modifiers, so crazy gameplay variants that you can put on a match to make it more spicy. For example, we have explosive bodies or slippery floors. So if you add those things up, it makes for an even uh, hilarious madness of multiplayer.
It certainly sounds like it.
Yeah,
It
and
sounds
it's
very.
way more things for people to try. If you add up all the game modes that we've added, all the maps, and you multiply by the numbers of modifiers there are, there's always something new to try in Aqua 2.
And okay, so that's modifiers. What about gameplay types? What's new and what's returning in Night Squad 2?
In terms of game modes, we did a bit of a culling on some game modes that were pretty much we know not played a lot in the original Night Squad, that I don't think a lot of people will miss. So some games modes are not returning, but most of them are. All the classics like Last Man Standing, Capture the Grail, Capture the Flag, of course, Gladiator, Juggernaut, the mode in which you pick up a minigun and you just destroy everyone with your minigun. Soul Hunter, Crystal Rush, just a ton of them, and we're adding 4 more game modes. We've only revealed 2, so that these are the one I will be talking about, but the 2 others are still secret. One is inspired by a lot of multiplayer games. I have that is a payload mode, so that's totally new. So you have a rail on the map with a payload that's moving slowly. If you have control over it, and you need to bring it to the enemy base to blow it up. We had that mode in the Xbox demo that we had 2 weeks ago, and the feedback was that was pretty good. So happy with that. And we're also having a mode that's inspired by MOBAs. So each of the team, it's a team mode. So both teams have a base, and every time you slay an enemy, it spawns a minion that goes into some sort of lane to attack the enemy base, and you win if you destroy the enemy base. So
That
these are the
sounds
two.
fun.
Yeah, well, we thought it was, and we had people try it, and then they came up with the feedback that it was good. So that's great.
All right. So I know you can't talk about the other 2 modes quite yet, but I suppose the question I can ask is, when will more information about those 2 modes come into the fore?
Probably we'll use that as kind of information to share and to kind of activate social media close to launch. So I guess somewhere this fall, mid fall, October, November, and all of that time will be in our final stretch before launch. So we'll try to get the most attention possible. We're talking with our PR firms and trying to strategize how we can use these modes to kind of generate interest. We might give one of these modes exclusively to media. You know how these things work. To expect some coverage out of that. So that's why we're keeping them secret. It's not because I don't want to share them with you guys, but I need these ammunitions.
No, we understand. I'm like, we also understand our place in the universe. Like, um, anyway, now in terms of how many people can play, I think that's gotten an upgrade as well. Because if I'm remembering correctly, the first Night Squad is up to 4 players, and this one's up to 8 players. Is that correct?
No, it was actually one of the key selling points of the first one as well. It's part of the brand, a Night Squad. It was developed for 8 players. Night Squad was born from a game jam prototype, and it was already in its first 24 hour of development. It was an 8 player game. So we're keeping that. It's very rare that you have 8 players locally or even online to play together. But when that happens, it's really really cool. So it's one of the key. It's still one of the key selling arguments of our game. So we're keeping that, of course, very precious to us. We don't know, however, we're probably gonna have to adapt that if we ever want to release on a PlayStation console because they do not support 8 players locally. That's why we never released the first one there. But well, PlayStation is a big market, so we might look into that.
That is unfortunate. Now, in terms of the online multiplayer, is this going to have crossplay?
Yeah, well, that's when I said earlier we're working with what we learned in previous projects. So that is a big thing we learned with Aftercharge, and we're really proud of it. Aftercharge was cross-platform between Xbox and PC. So Night Squad 2 is going to be cross-platform between Xbox, PC, and probably other consoles. If we release on other consoles, we see it being quite easy to do now that we've practiced it.
Right. Circling back to Night Squad 1 again, if I'm recalling correctly, this got a Nintendo Switch version.
Yeah,
recently,
very
right?
recently. That's something that we put on the back burner for way too long. But we finally made it. It was the year to do it. We were planning on releasing Night Squad 2 this year, so it was the time to kind of uh, create some more potential fans. We don't know, create some revenue, try things around. Is Night Squad still relevant? Let's try and put it on Nintendo Switch and see how that goes. So it was very experimental. We're really happy that we did it. Now that we have released a game on Switch, it would be very feasible for us to make Night Squad 2 on Switch. We don't know exactly when that will be happening in our plan, but now that we've released a game on Nintendo Switch, we feel more comfortable with that.
Indeed. And you use the word experimental.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what's the context, given that this is a port of Night Squad. What were you? Was it just to experiment with the market, or were you experimenting with, say, the Nintendo feature sets?
Yeah, it's mostly technological because we've never released a game on Nintendo Switch, so there's a lot to consider when developing it. I'm not very expert on porting and programming, but I know there was a lot of things that were unknown at that on that front. But also publishing, we've never gone through certifications on Nintendo Switch, so all of that process we weren't familiar with on the marketing end. So that's my end. What we wanted to kind of see if is does can Night Squad work on its own without a lot of marketing. We didn't market it a lot on Nintendo Switch. It was just, can it live on its own on a store without the support of the first party? Because the story of Night Squad, when we released it way back in 2015, it was heavily, we were very lucky to be heavily supported by Microsoft. It launched through the Games with Gold program. So if you remember that, it's barely used now, but it was a free game for everyone who had Xbox Live Gold. So we had 1.7 million download in the first month. So we knew that this helped a ton for the success of Night Squad. To pretty much we we owe the success of Night Squad to that. Uh, in my opinion. On top of that, it's a great game. So we wanted to see if it will it work if we just drop it on Nintendo Switch, and will it work well on the store? will the review be good from the player's perspective, um, and also we wanted to try a demo because there's that on Nintendo Switch. There had never been a Night Squad demo in the past, so we wanted to see is it a useful marketing tool? Are we having too many people download the demo but never converting to the full game? So we're looking at those numbers right now to kind of figure out do we want that for Night Squad 2? So that was also something that we wanted to experiment with.
So it sounds like it was a success on all levels then.
Yeah, well, yeah, very much so. It's not bringing us an immense amount of revenue. It's still a 5-year-old game. Even if you release it on Nintendo Switch, it's a 5-year-old. It's a port of a 5-year-old game, so it doesn't have uh, the shiny appeal of a brand new game. But it's yeah, it's bringing us enough revenue that we're really happy that we did that port. It took didn't take us that much time to do. It's something that we definitely should have done much earlier.
Right. And getting back to Night Squad 2 here. Now, about the knights themselves, uh, what can one expect for in terms of like skins?
Well, in Night Squad, every knight is a skin. It's in the it's in the DNA of Night Squad that every knight plays the same. There is not a lot of mechanics involved in each of the knights. You have one button to attack, and that's it. You move around. So every knight is plays exactly the same. The each of the knights are a skin of all the other knights, but they come with their own personality. They have animations that are their own, and to our surprise, not that we didn't like our knights, we think that they were pretty funny, and we think it was a great idea to put personality in them. But we were really surprised at the response when we launched the game, Night Squad One in 2015. A lot of people really like connected with the knights, even though they were basically just a one animation that was different from the other, the win animation.
Never
So
underestimate the ability of gamers to become emotionally
yeah,
attached to things that have no actual mechanical
oh,
difference.
we learned that. We learned that a lot. So we decided we found a way to have their personality show more into their each of their own animation. Um, they have animation when they were picked, but they also have a few different animation when they win, and when they lose, they all clap differently to kind of congratulate the other players. So we put a lot of new animation here and there, so their personality is more reflected, and I think people are gonna love that if they love the personality of each of the knights. And we have a lot of new nights planned for, if I'm not mistaken. Every night from Night Squad 1 are all coming back, but we're adding more on top.
Good to know. And will there be any like cosmetics? Hats or helmets or whatever you would adorn a knight with.
No, not really. Uh, what we're looking at right now, and we're not sure yet if we're gonna move forward to that. So it's like super exclusive information there for your listeners. We we were looking for something because people like to unlock stuff and be have a different aesthetic. So we're looking into possibly having a knight specific sword that you can unlock once you've done, I don't know, maybe an achievement, maybe an amount of kills or victories in the game. So your knight is going to have a sword that it's very themed to that knight. So perhaps a knight like Storm, who's like a lightning knight who controls the lightnings. Maybe his sword could be in the form of lightning, but you need to unlock it by playing a lot, and so that could be something. Because other than that, you have to always keep in mind that when you play Night Squad, the point of view is top down, and it's the camera never moves, so you're always very much zoomed out. So the nights are pretty small. So adding very small aesthetic changes on the nights wouldn't be that exciting. So it would work for us and not that exciting for players. So other than this, maybe a sword, I don't think we'll have other aesthetic things.
Duly noted. Although I'll note that that kind of thing does not stop other companies from going all in on aesthetics,
I know.
especially like it's like
When there's money like involved, of course, they will be trying, especially free to play games. They don't have a choice. They need to find things for people to purchase. But we're not going in in that market. Like free to play takes a marketing machine to work. And a lot of people ask that when we were struggling a little bit with Aftercharge, was saying put it free to play. Like it's not that simple. It's really not that simple. You need like to understand the magic of monetization
Mhm.
and kind of know how exactly to balance the game so people feel like they need to kind of spend money on it. You are otherwise you're like drowning in the server costs and you die. So we never we didn't go for free to play, and Night Squad 2 isn't going to be free to play either.
Duly noted. Now, with regards to the PC version of Night Squad 2, is this going to be Windows only, or are you launching builds on Mac and or Linux?
We've made the mistake in the past of promising Mac and Linux and actually never really delivering. It's I'd say it's a mix of my mistake of believing my very busy colleague programmers saying, "Oh yeah, we'll do that," and then I went out in the world saying, "Yes, we're gonna be on Linux." Yeah, of course. The programmers told me we'll be on Linux, and then it didn't make sense to spend time on that. We were swamped with a lot of things. So right now, the only thing I can promise is PC, but like the original Night Squad was on Mac and Linux, so maybe uh, that will be my answer. But it's just these are I know people who are working with Linux and the Mac gamers are really passionate about gaming and they want more games on their platform, but they have to understand how very small that market share is. So we need to spend time, but we need to kind of feel confident that's going to bring money that's going to be worth the time.
No, that makes sense. Like, especially if you made a mistake of announcing that feature and not have it there
Yeah.
until much later.
I think we're maybe we are barred from the Linux gaming community because we announced that, and I think we were when the day I kind of said that on Twitter, we had a Reddit thread started trending a little bit on Linux gaming, and we got a lot of people very excited about it, and was like, yeah. They told me I can do it, so yeah, we'll be on Linux. No worries, and then it never happened. So I feel bad about that. But so now no promising things that I'm not sure will deliver because we get when we look at numbers, we did the thing, and Night Squad 1 is on Linux and Mac. It's not bringing a lot of money, those versions,
Uh-huh.
because we have the numbers.
No doubt. Like, it's just, yeah, the people who do game on those platforms, specifically Linux, are very vocal.
Yep, yep, they are. They are.
And moving on ahead, in terms of stores, is this game going to be on Steam only, or is it coming to say GOG and EGS as well?
GOG, I don't know because it's all about the DRMs. It's much simpler, especially when you're making a an online multiplayer game. We're really beefing up the online features of Night Squad for Night Squad 2. It, what I've been told, it gets technical, and I don't want to say things that sound really bad when you know that stuff. So what I've been told is that really DRM free for multiplayer online multiplayer games is either a lot of work or just impossible, depending on how you build your thing. So GOG, I do not think we'll be going in that direction. As for EGS, yeah, we're in conversation with our contact there. Uh, we can't guarantee it yet because it needs some work. It's not as easy as just putting that build on EGS. We've never released on Epic Store, so um,
I mean,
I can't guarantee that version, but we're looking into it, and it would make a ton of sense. But of course, we'll be launching on Steam. The two platforms I'm sure that will be delivering for our release window are Xbox One and Steam Store.
yeah. I suppose in regards to an EGS version, maybe the first game might work as an experiment there, since Epic Games does have a habit of releasing older games as a free game of the week.
Yeah, it's not out of the question, but that part of the Epic Game Store is heavily curated by the Epic Store team.
Right.
It's not yet an open buffet. So we've had conversation with them, and Night Squad One isn't interesting for them, and we kind of get that because we know it's not. It's it's mostly a console game. It works on PC and it's ton of fun of PC, but in its DNA, it's more of a console experience. It didn't perform extremely well on Steam, so we didn't have incredible numbers to show them. So maybe that didn't help the pitch. But the game worked really well on Xbox One, and we know that some party games have immense success on Steam. So it's not impossible to have a successful game in that genre on Steam. It's just that we gotta need to figure out how to do it. I'm really looking. Um, it's not the same kind of game, of course, but I'm
Mhm.
really looking into how Fall Guys are working with their success on Steam, because there are some comparison you can draw between Fall Guys and Night Squad 2. So I'm kind of looking into their strategy and what they've done pre-launch to have such a big success, because we've never had um, like medium-sized success on Steam. So that's something we want to change, of course, with Night Squad 2.
Well, we wish you luck in that endeavor.
And thank
And
you.
let's see. I guess I'll end things off by asking. Now, I'm not expecting you to announce these things right here and now, but do you have the Night Squad 2 pricing and release date down yet, or is that still fluctuating?
Both of them are fluctuating, but I can give you general ideas.
Mhm.
And the price point is a sensible subject because there are a lot of things to consider. But of course, the original Night Squad was $15. Night Squad 2 has more meat to it, so it's going to be more. We're looking into what it would mean for it to be 20 to $30. I would somewhere in that range. It would make sense to make it more than that. We don't have a publisher. We're self-publishing. We don't need it to be more expensive than $30. So it's going to be around that price point for sure. And in terms of launch date, we're still kind of precise. We're working on end of Q4 2020. So the idea is to have the game recently released for the holiday season, because we know it's a great moment for these kinds of games, and we've seen it with the original Night Squad. It's performing well during the holiday season, and not only in sales but also in player activity. And uh, so it would make total sense to release in that time. And right now our production schedule is looking good. is looking good for meeting that launch window of somewhere in December 2020.
Okay. Right now, I'll see if my colleagues here have any other additional questions they wish to ask you.
I think I'm
I think
good.
I'm good.
All right then. So Laurent, it was wonderful having you on the program again. It's unfortunate to hear about After Charge.
Yeah.
But
These things happen.
Yeah. But it's good to see that you have been bouncing back and are planning on releasing Night Squad 2 here soon enough. You know, right? Indeed, the game is Night Squad 2. It's coming holiday 2020 for an yet to be determined price point. Be sure to wishlist it on Steam today.
Thank
And
you.
no problem. And Penny, play us to the next segment. All right, welcome to the topic of discussion. This week we are talking about the Microsoft Flight Simulator. Maybe a bit of an odd topic to talk about because, well, Microsoft Flight Simulator has always been one of those things that's straddled the line of what gaming is. Like, it's like I'm not sure if even Microsoft considered it to be a game, say back when it was, around in the 80s. They first really started thinking of, Microsoft Flight Simulator as a pure game application about the mid 90s when they started getting more heavily into games. And the reason we're talking about the legacy of Microsoft Flight Simulator is because there is a new one coming out this month, if I'm remembering correctly. I think like August 19th. And it's been a while since we've seen Microsoft Flight Simulator in its proper form. Microsoft Flight Simulator 10 was not the last flight simulator, although Microsoft Flight was misguided. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Now, as far as what Microsoft Flight Simulator is, well, it's in the title. It's a flight simulator from Microsoft. Or was it? Like, well, here's the thing. Like, Microsoft Flight Simulator didn't start out as a Microsoft product. No, it was a program called Flight Simulator, and it was put out by a company called Sublogic, which and the first version of this came out like really in the long ago. Like, we are talking the first microcomputers. Like the first iterations of Flight Simulator were released on like the Apple II and the TRS-80 back in 1979. Yeah, so we are talking like I think this is Microsoft's longest running product that is still alive. Granted, it wasn't alive for a good portion of the last, say, decade, but still, they're making a new one. So we're talking about a game series that's 41 years old. That there's not a lot of products out there with that kind of legacy. And it does this in the how do I put this? Most cutting edge way possible. See, it's not just that Microsoft Flight Simulator is a, most of the time flagship product of Microsoft. It's also considered like it's been very what's the word? It pushes the envelope. There we go. In terms of what game graphics can do. And it's not just in terms of graphical fidelity. I mean, that is part of the equation. just go and look at the 2020 version. Like, there are people who are more excited about the graphics on display here than in any other game coming out. Like, some people are even calling this the first true next-gen game, which is an interesting bit of supposition, because technically speaking, the new version of Microsoft Flight Simulator is not a next-gen game. It's slated to come out on the Xbox One X at some indeterminate point in the future, although Microsoft could just be saying that because they don't have all the Microsoft Series X details nailed down or whatever. I just, when this thing was announced, it was, it's the first Microsoft Flight Simulator game that's coming to a console, which is interesting because Microsoft Flight Simulator has also been one of the maybe the most PC-centric franchise in their cachet.
Though I suppose you could argue that that says something about how PC-ish the Xbox still is.
Possibly, but it's a flight sim. Like, and it's a serious flight sim as well. Like, I'm not exactly 100%. I'm not 100% sure if like the Flight Simulator series has actually been used to train real pilots. It wouldn't surprise me if that were the case, because this isn't Goat Simulator. This isn't a joke simulator. This is
actually what would the Goat Simulator of flight simulators be? I want to say it's something like Kerbal Space Program, but I'm not sure.
No, definitely not Kerbal. Like that's as like whatever the aesthetic, that's as serious as this is.
Yeah, you can do wacky stuff in it.
No. But the thing about Goat Simulator is that's 100% a joke.
Yeah.
That was the game that ushered in the wave of parody and unserious kind of simulator games. Microsoft Flight Simulator, 100%, you are simulating flying a commercial airliner.
Well, I just Googled a joke flight simulator, and it gave me a bunch of results for flight simulator yokes, so I assume there probably aren't many. The yoke being the equipment, what you use to get a more realistic plane-like experience.
Maybe like Microsoft Chicken Simulator.
Maybe.
Anyway,
sorry, that was a bit of a diversion. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah. It's fine. And more specifically, Flight Simulator is about flying commercial aircraft. Not all the time, because like there was Microsoft Flight Simulator 2004, which was celebrating a literal century of flight. So that one added in a whole bunch of historical aircraft as well, going all the way back to the Wright brothers plane.
Does it suck as much as it did in real life?
From what I've heard, yes.
More importantly, so this is a thing you definitely could do in at least some editions of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Can you choose the right flyer in the mode that lets you have the guns from the friggin' Stop with Camel or whatever? I'm
not exactly sure.
Because we had Microsoft Flight Simulator in the industrial arts room, computer room in high school or whatever,
right.
And what we like to do is put it up on the mode with that's designed as like a World War II simulator, and it gets you a plane and it has guns you can shoot. Not that there's really much to shoot, and then just change the plane to the Learjet.
I'm like,
and still have the guns.
See, the issue is Microsoft for a time had an entire branch dedicated to that kind of thing. They had a spin-off series, cousin series, however you want to define it, called Combat Flight Simulator, in which you were flying, well, once again, combat flight. You were flying World War II planes of both the Pacific and European theaters. Trying to remember what the conceit of the third one was. Yeah, they made 3 of these. They also made a couple of one-offs in terms of simulators. Like there's Microsoft Space Simulator, which was like a Windows 95 thing. And there was Microsoft Train Simulator, which, once again, that was all about a serious simulation of trains.
And there are still train simulator games because some people are, and this is important to note, really into trains.
Yeah, I'm like, if you look that shit up, these people are fucking loaded. Like, good God, the DLC on some of that train simulator stuff, it seriously goes for like hundreds of dollars.
They could seriously feed third world countries with that shit.
Probably. Like, and it's also worth noting that there are kind of two types of train simulators out in the world. There is the simulating of the actual trains, and there's a simulation of being a train conductor. I know
Train
that
conductor simulator is probably the less popular and interesting because, well, especially nowadays, trains are super automated.
Well, I mean, it depends on where you are. Like train conductor simulation, that's a lot more popular in Japan. You know, Denesha Digo and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Denesha, or however you pronounce that.
Densha.
Densha, there we go. You know, that's the stuff I'm talking about. That is a very different thing than worrying about, because the split and difference is you're worried more about like the train, whereas as a train conductor, you're worried more about the route.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that even extends to like A Train. Like A Train is less about the trains and it's more about the economy around the trains. But we're getting off topic here because this isn't about trains, it's about airplanes.
Yep, sorry.
It's fine. But once again, Flight Simulator has been around, you know, since like the dawn of microcomputers, basically. And it's always been used as a technological showcase, not just in terms of what graphics can be simulated, but also, you know, back in the 80s, it was used to test DOS compatibility. Because apparently, if you were, in order to ensure that you were 100% DOS compatible, you had to be able to run the flight simulator of that current age. At least this is what I've been told. Like, you know, that was kind of before my time, so to speak, in terms of knowing such things. So, plus, didn't really grow up with Flight Simulator. And I'll be honest, Flight Simulator never really grabbed me because, you know, once again, it's a flight simulator. This is the kind of thing you need a joystick for. Or, you know, like a proper
flight stick or a yoke or some. You can't. Keyboard and mouse is not getting the full experience.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it. I mean, clearly you can use it because, you know, the Microsoft Flight Simulator, you know, for most of its time wasn't seen as a niche product. It was actually one of Microsoft's, you know, biggest flagships. Like in terms of like mid 90s gaming, their biggest property. So yeah, a lot of people played Flight Simulator. It's just, you know, the decline and the partial collapse of Flight Simulator happened, you know, during that unmagical time at Microsoft called the late 2000s. You know, that's when Microsoft was really hitting the Xbox brand hard. Like, and that's where things that did not fit into the Xbox brand got shit canned. You know, it's like, it's not a coincidence that the previous flight sim game prior to this was Microsoft Flight Simulator 10. Technically, the expansion pack Acceleration, in which, if I'm remembering correctly, that's where you are dealing. You know, the big selling point there was speed aircraft. But you know, they developed that 2006 to 2007, and the studio behind that, Studio Aces, was one of a few PC-centric developers that they axed about 2008. 2008 is when they got rid of Ensemble, when they got rid of Aces, when they got rid of Carbonated Games. I'm pretty sure if like Peter Molyneux wasn't there, they would have gotten rid of Lionhead just to have the audacity to develop PC games. Seriously, they were really fucking anti-PC games in the late 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And it still pisses me off because we lost some great studios because of it. And I know that, like technically speaking, Aces got closed because of the credit crunch. It's fucking Microsoft. They could have afforded to keep these companies around. Mm-hmm. But, once again, we are getting off track here. So in terms of like the new Microsoft Flight Simulator, see, the reason why it's touting its the graphical fidelity is being touted so much is not just, this is the most open world of open world games. Because, the point...
Yeah, to do a perfect flight simulator, you also actually need a pretty much perfect, like, stuff going on the ground simulator.
Right. I mean, and that's always been, like, one of the things that's been pushing in the flight simulator games. How much of, like, land masses and oceans and, what's going on the ground are you actually simulating? And it's not just, okay, do you have the big cities... how much attention to detail are you giving to the smaller stuff? Because, spoiler alert, resources tend to go for the big cities versus the, you're going to be rendering LA and New York City before you're rendering St. Louis.
Or, middle of nowhere town. People are more concerned about being able to emergency land in whatever friggin' river it was than they are to be able to perfectly model a part of the Mississippi River that you could potentially emergency land on that doesn't happen to be near any major towns.
Right. And, that's one of the things that's going to be interesting about the 2020 version is, will they have, like an accurate simulation of the, like, United States, Canada, how much of the world is actually going to be properly represented. And keep in mind, we are, in the year of 2020, there are tools that help us with that goal.
Will they draw China too well for their stupid, like, legal confounding of Google Maps that they do?
Oh, it's not just China. India does that shit. In fact, Microsoft got into trouble over India's borders. Like, I think it was Windows 2000. Like, I know it was like one of the 90s versions of Windows almost got banned because they, quote unquote, misrepresented India's borders. Yeah, people take this shit very seriously in certain countries.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but yeah, we have tools like Google Earth, Google Street View. I know, like, the X-Plane series has been using Google View to help fuel their map data for years. It's also they're using procedural generation in some fashion in terms of the graphical fidelity. I'm not exactly sure how that's working. Like, that's one of those really technical things that's a bit beyond my brain at this point. Like, but I've been hearing a lot about the algorithm, which is always worrying. Thank you, YouTube, for ruining that word. But and it's also really going to be interesting to see how they get this game to work on a fucking Xbox gamepad. Because, yeah, just the thought of playing a fight sim game with these fucking thumbsticks scares me. I'm like, but like, we do not issue these things to pilots for a reason. So that will be interesting. Probably horrifying, just thinking about how it controls, but and that, once again, that gets to flight, but I really don't want to talk about flight. That was an attempt to casualize the franchise in what passed off as casual. It basically amounted to turning the game physics into fucking Pilot Wing. Like, and make no mistake, Pilot Wings.
Yeah, Pilot Wings is fine. It's just not what people go to Microsoft Flight Simulator for.
Yeah, it's like, in fact, we'll talk about Pilot Wings next week if nothing comes up, which that may change because, like, tomorrow Sony's doing a thing. You know, they said no PlayStation 5 stuff, but, you know, they still might announce something for the PlayStation 4 that's significant. But anyway, now it's like, believe it or not, like, we are just scratching the surface of Microsoft Flight Simulator because there are 10 mainline versions, and even those that didn't have like official DLC. And, you know, back in the day, like, DLC was things like image packs. You know,
Oh
these
God,
were,
the image packs.
Yes. Yeah. There was DLC for like the early 90s versions of these games and the late 80s versions. It's just you didn't download them, you bought them on fucking floppy disk. Like, and that's just the first party stuff. There is a very healthy economy surrounding third party applications. Like there are entire developers who do like nothing but third party updates to various flight sim games. Not just like supporting X. Like this goes all the way back to like, if I'm understanding, the Windows 95 version of Microsoft Flight Simulator. So, yeah, there's a very robust community around this. And, you know, each version has their, you know, minute differences. Like, we could spend an entire show just going through that line by line, but that wouldn't be very interesting. You know, truth be told. But yeah, you know, it's it's a long and storied franchise, and it's good to see it back. Not gonna lie, not my particular cup of tea, but you know, it's nice to have a good and proper Microsoft Flight Sim game going on here, and that's still as serious as ever. Not going down the route of wacky, because I don't think that would ever work for Microsoft Flight Simulator. No, maybe another Flight Sim series, sure, but branding is a thing. Anyway, so that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. The week ahead, right? So we do have a Friday show this week scheduled, and I am pleased to say that it looks like, barring another, I know this has happened twice this season, but you know, these are things that are beyond our control. But on Friday, August 7th, we will be having Niels Wittenberg of Invisible Walls on the program. You know, in fact, he asked me for questions just today. So this is going to happen, unless like something severe. But anyway, we'll be talking about First Class Trouble. So this is a curious and interesting game. Okay, with First Class Trouble, we want to invoke a super strong social experience filled with trust and deception. Players are working together, but a few players are not who they seem to be and are actively working against you. With First Class Trouble, we want to create situations where you can never fully trust your companions, but you will have to trust someone in order to progress through the game. That means you will have to constantly look over your shoulder, uncover information on players, and in the end, you have to figure out who the synth players are to win the game. We aim to create a rich background of possibilities fueled by social interactions with other players. This will be a new player experience each time you press find a game. So the plot is we are on board the Althena, a massive 2-kilometer-long space cruise ship set for Proxima Centauri, owned by the prominent Scandinavian Infinity Cruise. By the way, they are a Scandinavian company, Invisible Walls. It is the most prestigious space project ever taken, a merger of wealth, power, and business in a newly technological world gone wild. Packed with all the latest tech, Althenia, probably mispronouncing that, is also equipped with the latest of AI servants, synths. There has been some problem with maintaining the synth's emotional state, but it's been solved before departure. The solutions were simply to reboot all the synths every 24 hours, but something failed, of course. Something in the system didn't reboot. Things spiraled out of control aboard the Elfina. Now it's passing Jupiter at 1/8 the speed of light with a robot rebellion. Kane has already tried to eliminate all the passengers by turning all the oxygen off, and only a couple of travelers with breathers are left trying to escape. Luckily, the synths were purposely designed to be weaker than humans because they are searching for the ship for the last remaining humans, hiding among them, ready to finally reset them for once and for all. So yeah, that's a game. Like, really reminds me of the ship, which kind of had the same conceit, only was on a luxury cruise line ship like early 20th century. But yeah, we'll be talking a lot more about First Class Trouble on Friday. In terms of the Sunday reviews, this week we are reviewing Neversong, a indie puzzle platformer. Bit more unique than your typical puzzle platformer, I'll give it that. It's almost a good game. More on that on Sunday. We got Lost Wing, PlayStation 4 version, a rhythm-based shmup, I think. Like, I'm honestly not sure how much rhythm takes into account here. Rain Swept for the Nintendo Switch, a gritty noir adventure game. And Gladiator School, which is, well, about a gladiator school, which is also a management sim. Not the first thing that came to mind when I saw that game, but Twilight will be regaling us with that. His microphone should be working because we'll be using Skype for the reviews. So, until Friday, I shall wish you good gaming.